Major Steelers updates. This has serious implications. The Pittsburgh Steelers have started their training camp at St. Vincent's. However, they're missing some star players on defense. My name is Peyton Kleppe, and on today's episode of Steelers Digest, we'll be breaking down the latest Pittsburgh Steelers analysis and news regarding the Pittsburgh Steelers football team. Before we get into the latest news regarding the Steelers, if you guys are not already currently subscribed to the channel, just click that subscribe button down below. We are trying to get to 3,000 subscribers. So the Pittsburgh Steelers have officially started their training camp at St. Vincent's College in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. It's great to see our guys finally in pads, finally getting football going. Obviously, the Hall of Fame game did start a few days ago. It did happen. The Chargers and the Lions did play. It really wasn't a great game, but we did see some familiar faces. Former first-round pick Trey Lance threw a few touchdowns and looked pretty good. So, it's good to see some football back in action, and it's great to see our Steelers, finally in pads and finally getting their practices going. However, there have been some injuries. That is the name of the game. Football is a physical sport, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are already starting to deal with some injuries. A notable name that the Pittsburgh Steelers have kind of seen in and out of the lineup already is Broderick Jones. He is looking to be our starting left tackle. However, he did lose some weight this offseason. I believe he lost like 20 pounds. And, the negative thing about losing weight is you become a lot more injury prone most of the time. Although you are, a lot more agile, a lot more faster on your feet, you do lose some of that, that padding of having that extra weight. So it does suck that Broderick Jones is kind of been out in and out of the lineup already. Him and our other starting right guard, Isaac Seumalo, both of them have been kind of limited in practice, but Mike Tomlin really has not shown too much concern. And, if he doesn't show too much concern, it should be good for us. But, some other notable names that have been in and out of the lineup in camp. Our young guy, Joey Porter Jr., he's been a pretty good cornerback for us these past couple years since being drafted out of Penn State. Obviously the son of Joey Porter Sr., Steelers legend, who recently got inducted into the Steelers Hall of Honor. Congratulations to him. But this is about Joey Porter Jr. Unfortunately, Joey Porter is dealing with some injuries that really have not been specified. According to the article, on PennLive.com, the Steelers have held their annual Friday Night Lights practice as training camp rages on. With the second week of their camp concluding, over 1,300 fans made it to St. Vincent's College in Latrobe, Pennsylvania to watch their team practice under the lights. Obviously, Friday Night Lights. The Steelers do go to, I believe it's Latrobe High School or something like that, and, they do hold a practice under the lights for all the fans to watch. Unfortunately, there was a notable absence from the Steelers practice. However, third-year cornerback Joey Porter Jr., who has impressed throughout the beginning of training camp, did not participate in any drills or activities. Instead, the rising defensive back was in comfortable clothing while the team ran through their session. So, this is not really great news to hear for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, Joey Porter Jr. has been our starting cornerback since coming into the league. We have kind of provided him with some safety net by adding, veteran guys alongside him. His rookie year, he had Patrick Peterson. Last year, he had Dante Jackson. And, this year he will have a guy like Jalen Ramsey, former Super Bowl champion, former All-Pro cornerback who's going to teach him the best he can and probably be the best starting corner alongside Joey Porter Jr. since he's had, coming into the league. We also added a guy in Darius Slay, who just won a Super Bowl with the Eagles, and another seasoned veteran who can teach Joey Porter Jr., how to play the corner position. Maybe how to be a little less handsy. We go back to last year against the Cincinnati Bengals. It seemed like he had like 17 holding calls or pass interference penalties against him. But, that's the kind of corner Joey Porter Jr. is. And, you can't let refs and other people change the way you play. You're just going to have to evolve with the game. Unfortunately, the NFL has moved into a much more offensive favored league. Those defensive guys that, like to be physical, like to get their hands on these receivers. They do suffer from a lot of these new rules. a lot of these new Patrick Mahomes, ticky-tack rules. But, you're just going to have to evolve with the game, change, maybe a few things in your play, but you can't change everything. He is a physical corner. He's about 6'1", 6'2", so he's going to be a guy that's going to press your wide receiver. He's going to be on, whoever he's covering. But, it is not great to see him not playing, in practice. So, this was a surprise, Joey Porter's absence. He was not listed in any injury report from the team, and head coach Mike Tomlin did not mention him during his post-practice media session. So, with no Porter on the field, depth corner Brandon Echols did receive more snaps with the first and second teams in practice. Brandon Echols is a guy we did add in free agency from the New York Jets. And obviously the New York Jets, they really have not had too much success in the past couple years, but their defense has been pretty stout. They've had some pretty good depth on that defense. Behind guys like Sauce Gardner, they've really had some guys that have emerged as other pretty good cornerbacks. I believe DJ Reed, I do believe he signed somewhere else this offseason, but he is another guy that I do think played for the New York Jets, kind of developed under a guy like Sauce Gardner, and obviously Brandon Echols, another notable name that the Pittsburgh Steelers did sign for depth this offseason, and he is getting those snaps that Joey Porter is missing out on. So, good for him. He's probably going to see the field here and there this offseason. Obviously, as we go in the season, probably looking to go more Joey Porter Jr. once he does get healthy. But sometimes it's good to let these other guys get the reps. Another guy like Beanie Bishop, a guy who really stepped up his rookie year, unfortunately kind of got phased out of the starting lineup. But, another guy that does have a future in the NFL, and I really think could get even better with some more experience, with some more snaps. So, maybe it isn't so great that Porter isn't playing during training camp, but it really does open up some reps for those other guys. But obviously Porter is entering a pivotal year with the Steelers. He went through the classic sophomore slump during his second year in Pittsburgh. He was one of the most penalized cornerbacks in the NFL, getting called for 12 penalties in pass coverage. So, this really was not great to see from Joey Porter Jr., but he's still young. He's still got a lot of potential, and I do think as he grows and gets better as a corner, he will limit some of those, penalty calls, and he will get that target off his back. Because, like I said, that game against the Cincinnati Bengals, it felt like every snap, every ball that was thrown Joey Porter's way, they were throwing a flag before he even touched the receiver. So this guy kind of does have a target on his back for being a physical guy, but I do think he's going to develop pretty well with the additions of Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay, and all those other guys. But, another guy who has gone down with an injury, unfortunately, at that cornerback position. In an article by Nick Farabaugh, he does go into detail that, Pittsburgh Steelers cornerback Cory Trice went down with a hamstring injury during the team's Friday Night Lights practice. He also did suffer a hamstring injury last year that forced him to miss half the season, and he did unfortunately miss his entire 2023 rookie season after tearing his ACL. At the NFL Combine, general manager Omar did say the team did like Trice, but could not really trust him due to his injury history. So, this is kind of unfortunate. I do like Cory Trice. I think he's also a young cornerback with a lot of potential for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but, the best ability is availability, and with this guy, he really has not been able to stay healthy and stay on the field. But if he could get healthy before the season, see some snaps, I do think this guy's going to have a pretty good future with the Pittsburgh Steelers. A great depth piece and a great guy that we could rely on if, say, one of our starters does go out. Hopefully they don't, but, this guy is a great backup to have, in case somebody does go down. He's another physical cornerback, another, pretty well-built cornerback. I believe he's like 6'2" or 6'3" at that cornerback position. So it's always great to have one of those guys in your back pocket just in case. But, after the Friday Night Lights, Coach Tomlin really did not seem too, phased about any of these injuries. He says, obviously, we do have to go back to the drawing board. We do have to heal up, but he really did not seem over concerned about any of these injuries, and I do think there's plenty of time for these guys to get healthy before the season starts, and I do think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to have a great defense this year as we head into the regular season. Unfortunately, that is all I have for you guys today on Steelers Digest. If you guys are not already currently subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button down below. Thank you so much. Here we go, Steelers.